Hi everyone! A few weeks ago I got my hands on the Jackson Stealth EX. The Stealth was part of the Jackson Professional series, made in Japan and manufactured between 1992 and 1995. I'm pretty familiar with this series because the first real guitar I got was a Jackson Kelly Standard from the same series that I bought in 1995. Now let's have a look at the spec of the Stealth in the 1994 Jackson catalog. So here is the Jackson 1994-1995 catalog. And if we scroll down, we can see all their models: the Soloist, the Rhodes, the King V, the Kelly. That's my guitar, this Kelly Standard. I dreamed about this guitar for months, reading this exact same catalog. Anyway, on the left page we can see the Stealth. There were two models actually, the Stealth HX with 3 humbuckers and a fixed bridge, and the Stealth EX, which is the one we're interested in today, with a basswood body, maple neck, rosewood fingerboard. It's a very sleek body, very thin, a bit like an Ibanez S. We can see also the bridge. Let's look at the spec. The bridge is a JT580, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a Takeuchi bridge. It's a Japan-made bridge. Electronics, pickups, we have 2 single coils and 1 humbucker made by Jackson, and it was available in black, blue, red, and stone. Now we'll have a look at the actual guitar itself, and at the end of the video I'll explain the cool story of how I got it. So this is the actual guitar I got. You can see the fretboard is pretty dry and the frets are a bit oxidized, gritty. The plots on the single coils are rusty, both single coils. Also the humbucker and the screws are a bit recessed into the coil. This saddle is broken, and the last one misses the returner block. The screws are all rusty. Now let's check the rest of the controls. The selector switch looks okay. The screw is rusted, but the switch is working. And on the other side, the very nice heel joints. You can see also rusted screws. Very nice maple neck. And Jackson tuners. The classic little ding at the top of the headstock. And yeah, we have the mark of a broken headstock. This one was broken and glued back in place. You can see the line here around the low E tuner. As you can see on this picture, the Stealth is very thin, very sleek. If you compare to a Les Paul, a Strat, a Dinky, the only thinner body is the Ibanez S. At this point, there were 3 things I was not so sure about. 1, the screws on the bridge were all rusted. One of the saddle was broken, and another one was missing the block to retain the string. 2, the screws on the humbucker were all rusted and sunk deep inside the coil. And 3, the headstock had been broken around the low E string tuner, and I needed to make sure that the repair was solid. My plan was to restore this guitar in order to bring it back to playing condition while retaining its identity as much as possible. And now, enough talking, let's go repairing.
Let's do it!
So the first step in this repair is to disassemble the neck. It makes it much easier to work on the neck, on the frets, to separate it from the body. So now that the neck is separated from the body, let's put the body aside for a moment. And let's note one important thing when we are going to reassemble. The screws are not the same size. There are two short screws and two long screws because the heel joint is thinner near the neck. I can see the tuners are a bit loose, but first of all I'm going to remove the locking nut. And in order to do that, I have to remove the truss rod cover. So now let's remove the tuners. And I'm checking if the repair of the headstock is solid. So I'm pretty happy with the result. The neck is bare now, and the first thing I'm going to do is clean up a bit the headstock. Next, I'm going to polish the frets. They were a bit rusty, if you remember. So in order to do that, I need to protect the fretboard with tape. You can use different methods to polish the frets. The one I'm using is quadruple O steel wool, but you can also use micro mesh pads, micro mesh sticks, or a Dremel tool with a polishing compound. And that's it. You can see how shiny the frets are now. Now I'm using a micro mesh stick in order to make the fret ends very smooth and very rounded. A rosewood fingerboard is not finished, meaning you can actually use steel wool to remove the grease and dirt that has accumulated over the years. So now we're getting to my favorite product, F1 Oil by Music Nomad. It's a great oil to condition and hydrate your fretboard. It works on all kinds of woods, rosewood, ebony, and even maple, and it smells good, so wonderful. And of course you don't actually have to use your fingers to spread it on the fretboard. I just kinda like it. I must say I'm pretty happy with the result. The rosewood looks very dark, the frets are shiny, and if we turn it around, the maple is really nice, really nicely figured. Now I'm going to use a metal polish compound in order to remove the rust and clean all the screws, the back plate, the locking nut, and basically every metallic part in order to protect it and make it shine. After cleaning the truss rod plate, we are now reaching the final stages of the neck reassembly. So now I'm putting back the locking nut. And for each little screw on the nut, I'm using WD-40 to protect it from rust. The polishing compound alone was not enough for the big screws holding the neck, so I decided to use a Dremel tool for a more aggressive polish. And now it's time to clean all the tuners. And put them back into place. But what I realized with the second tuner is that the thread was damaged. And so I will use a little trick that maybe some of you already know. I'm using a wood glue and a toothpick, and I'm just cutting the toothpick to the right length and putting it inside the thread in order to give a bit more material that the screw will be able to catch on. And as you can see, it's very important for the tuning stability that all the screws on the neck are correctly tightened. And that's it. Our neck is now finished. It's looking very clean, very nice. And I would say that for a 30 years old guitar, the result is pretty good. See for yourself with this before and after comparison. Second big part of this repair, the body. So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove the Floyd Rose. Since I'm going to be removing a lot of screws and little parts, I'm trying to be a bit more organized than with the neck. I am going to use a little plastic box with compartments in order to store them in an organized way. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit here. The springs are very tight and very difficult to remove, but don't worry, eventually I'll get there. Finally, here is the bridge, and I'm trying something here. I'm trying to put a Floyd Rose Special that was originally on the pink guitar you can see in the back, but it just didn't fit. Now I will be disassembling all the pickups. I would like to see if the bridge pickup can be salvaged or if it has to be replaced. Now I'm connecting the guitar to my amp to see if the pickups react to a tap test. And I'm trying to bring up all the screws on the humbucker, but the first screw refuses to come up, so I suppose that's why all the others were so down in the coil, to keep a balance between the screws. So at that point, I know the humbucker has to be replaced for sure. Anyway, let's continue removing all the parts from the body. You will see a bit further down the line why I want to remove everything. Here I'm just putting some tape on the pickups in order to be able, to turn the guitar around without the pickups falling on the floor. So now we are arriving to a very interesting part of the electronics repair, and I want to slow down a bit the video to explain what's going on. So what I'm doing currently is I'm drawing a map of the pickups, and I want to understand what is the electric polarity of each pickup and what is the magnetic polarity of each pickup. So you can see I'm now using a magnetic tester, which will give me the magnetic polarity of the pickup, south or north. Now I'm connecting a multimeter to the guitar to check the resistance of each pickup, which basically corresponds to its output. So of course the humbucker will have a much more important resistance and output than the single coil. So now I'm changing gears and testing another pickup. So this is the original bridge pickup of my Jackson Kelly. And I think it can be a great replacement for the bridge pickup. So here is the nicer version of the little map I made of the pickups. Basically, each time I'm touching the electronics of a guitar, I'm trying to do this kind of map because you can learn a lot from it. So it won't be very technical or very intense, but if you are allergic to electronics, you can just skip this sequence. The theory is each time you try to combine two coils, you have to compare their magnetic polarity and their electric polarity. So if they are the same, the pickups or the coils will be in phase, which is generally what you want. And if they are one is the same but the other is the opposite, so for example same magnetic polarity but different electric polarities, then they will be out of phase, which gives you kind of nasal sound, and it doesn't sound right. Some people like it and actually look for this kind of sound, but generally it's not what you want. And the last situation is when both magnetic and electric polarity are reversed. And in this case, not only will your coils be in phase, but also they will be hum cancelling. And that's exactly the principle of a humbucker. A humbucker is just two coils put together, and these two coils have opposite magnetic polarity and opposite electric polarity. So now let's get back to our guitar. And what does it mean for us? So the first thing to understand is if you are in the neck position only, you will get the hum, of course. If you are in middle position only, you will also get the hum, because if you have only one coil, there is no way to cancel the noise, cancel the hum. If you are on the bridge position only, of course, you will cancel the hum because that's what a humbucker is designed to do. So the interesting thing is, what about the intermediate position? That is neck plus middle or middle plus bridge. So the first thing you can notice is the neck and the middle pickups have the same electric and magnetic polarities. They are wired the same and they are both south magnetic polarity. So from the drawing you can already see that they will be in phase, but they won't be hum cancelling. Is there a way to fix that? Yeah, you would have to replace one of the single coil pickups by their RWRP reverse one reverse polarity version. And generally all the big manufacturers have a regular and the RWRP RP version of the same pickup. But I decided to, respect the original drawing and not do any like change to the circuit. So I will leave it as it is. Now, what about the other intermediate position, that is middle plus bridge? Well, on this guitar, in this intermediate position, the full bridge, the full humbucker is active, so you get this middle single coil plus the 2 coils of the humbucker. I'm not using that position a lot, and again, I didn't want to change the original circuit, but what if I wanted to have a hum cancelling position in this situation? The first thing I would need to check is to split the humbucker when I'm in the intermediate position, which is leave only one coil active. And you see the white and red wires. At the moment they are soldered together, but there is a way to wire them in the circuit so that when we switch to position 2, only one of the coils remains active. And the second thing I need to do is, of course, make sure that the coil that remains active has to be the red one, the north coil, so that I will be left with the south middle coil and the north bridge coil, and then it will be in phase and hum cancelling. If you want more information about how guitar electronics work, I highly recommend this book from Gary Hayes, Complete Guitar Wiring. It's a goldmine of information and explained in a very thorough and easy to understand way. So now back to our guitar. I will try with a polishing compound to remove most of the rust on the single coil pickups. So now I'm removing the rest of the switches and potentiometers in order to apply a swirl remover on the body. So a swirl remover is a polishing compound that will attenuate the marks and scratches on the guitar finish. Oops, did you see the pickups falling? That's exactly why I put tape the first time. So now I've finished the front sides, I can put them back into place. And about the humbucker, I will just tape it because I know I have to replace it. And now we can apply the swirl remover to the backside. And now the surgery itself, we are going to replace the humbucker pickup. So first of all, I'm desoldering the old pickup and putting the new one into place. Also, the pickup mounting ring is wedge-shaped, which means the taller edge faces towards the bridge and the shorter edge towards the neck. Basically, the red and white wires have to be soldered together. Each manufacturer has its own color codes, but for Jackson, that's how it works. One of the wires have to be wired to the switch, and the other has to be wired to the ground. Now I'm tapping with a metallic tool on the pickup poles to check that each pickup is active as it should in the right position. Now I'm going to install strap locks. I always use the same strap lock, so I can have only one strap for all of my guitars. And we reach a very satisfying moment where I'm going to reassemble the neck on the body. The bridge on this guitar is the part that was probably the most damaged, but it's very good quality in fact. As you can see, this bridge is manufactured by Takeuchi, which is a Japanese brand, and the base plate is probably stainless steel. So I'm going to try and salvage everything I can and replace only what's necessary. Namely the back screws, which are very, very rusted. After the screws, I'm now removing the saddles, one of which is broken and another is missing the retainer block. So they are basically useless. I cannot repair them, I have to replace them. The base plate is actually in pretty good condition, it just needs a bit of cleaning. Now I'm going to replace the saddles. I chose these saddles on Amazon. Apparently they are stainless steel, so they should offer a good resistance and durability. This is what these saddles look up close. And as you can see on this picture, they have different heights. So the reason is the fretboard is radius, it has a curve, and the saddles have to follow the same curve, meaning the lowest saddles have to be set on the sides, then the intermediate saddles, and then the highest saddles have to be in the middle for the G and G strings. About the position of the saddles, I know that they need to look like stairs, 3 saddles at a time, in order to be intonated correctly for 942 or 946 gauge strings. So I'm setting them approximately, and then when I tune the guitar and set up the guitar, I will check the intonation a bit more precisely. But this is a good approximation. The bridge looks already pretty cool with the new saddles, but I think I'm going to install the new intonation screws that are provided with the saddles. The thing is, the original screws are locked at the end of the thread, so they cannot go out of the base plate without a bit of force. So I'm using a tool here. And now I'm putting the new silver screws, which I think would be a bit more precise and honestly look very cool. And now it's time to put the bridge back into the guitar. And yes, it's a screen bar, not my favorite, but it does the job. Stringing up and setting up a Floyd Rose bridge is one of the most annoying things in the known universe. So here is a little trick. Put something under the bridge so you can keep it horizontal as much as possible. It really helps the stringing process. I always recommend whenever you change parts on your guitar to always keep the original parts in a sealed bag like this, whether it's pickups, strap locks, etc. One last little touch, something that wasn't there originally, a little made in Japan sticker, so that the guitar can now proudly show her country of origin. And it's back to the workshop. So let's open the guitar and check the input jack. There are two wires to unsolder, the hot and the ground. The hot is the white wire, the ground is the black wire. And now we can remove the input jack from the body. And here is the culprit. This kind of input jack is called a barrel input jack and is used mainly on very slim guitars because you don't have the real estate to put like regular jack. But the drawback is that this design has a very short lifespan. Maybe you can play intensively for 2-3 years and then you're pretty sure it's going to break down. The little pins inside are going to get further apart until it doesn't contact anymore with the input jack. And now the solder is done. I'm checking it's solid. I'm also checking you can put an input jack easily. So now let's close this up and start our test again. So here you go, a nice little shredder guitar from the 90s, back from the grave. I love how it looks now with this kind of Witcher black and silver theme. Of course it's not perfect, the frets would need to be leveled, the pickups are not hum cancelling in the position 2 and position 4, and the pickups probably aren't the best of all times, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the story behind the guitar. This guitar belonged to my good friend Nico, with whom I used to play in a band where we were 22, 23. We both played Jackson guitars, he on his Stealth, and me on my Kelly, and we had a blast. Best band I ever played in. Then years passed, he bought another guitar, and this Jackson was not played much anymore. And a few months ago, I offered him to buy it in order to restore it, but Nico very generously gave it to me. And now these two guitars are reunited once again after 25 years. I think that's a pretty cool story. If you like this video, the whole restoration process and the cool story that comes with the guitar, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment. Thanks! At this point, there were three things. Putain, j'arrive pas à dire three.
Free?
Ah, ça va.
Oups, je suis trop fort.